State of the Union with Candy Coley, CNN Sunday Morning, 9 Eastern.
I want to talk to you about North Korea. Try to give our audience some perspective on how dangerous this is. And I ask because it seems to me we go through this periodically. All of a sudden, North Korea, tests a missile, fires into South Korean, at least, water territory. Is this any more dangerous than anything in the past? And what does that mean to the average American?
Well, I think it's probably more dangerous in that the North Koreans have enhanced capability, both missile and nuclear capability, but it's also a lesson that continued appeasement of North Korea, which we've been doing basically under Republican and Democrat administration since 1994 with the agreed upon framework. We've given the North Koreans over $1 billion worth of aid and assistance in the last 15 years or so, and based on the premise that we would all get together and negotiate. It seems the purpose of everything is to get the North Koreans to the table. The North Koreans' only claim to their position on the world stage is their nuclear capability. And they have a terrible, most oppressive regime in the world. They have hundreds of thousands of people in slave labor camps. And all of that seems to be sacrificed in the altar of, quote, negotiations. Long ago, we should have put significant pressures on the North Koreans. Even in the Bush administration, we freed up a $25 million bank account and took them off the terrorist list. Could I just finally say the key to this, obviously, is China. And unfortunately, China is not behaving as responsible world power. It cannot be in China's long-term interest to see a renewed conflict on the Korean Peninsula. We've got to understand that China is not what we want it to be, but is not playing a responsible role on the world stage, much less on the Korean Peninsula. They could bring the North Korean economy to its knees if they wanted to. And I cannot believe that the Chinese should, in a mature fashion, not find it in their interest to restrain North Korea. So far, they are not.
You have called it, what North Korea has done is unacceptable. You have called on China to react strongly. They have said, let's get the group of 6 together, not for talks on nuclear, on North Korea's nuclear capability, but about this. Let's have an emergency meeting. Is that a good first step?
I think it'd be a fine first step. But do we really think that there's been this long history of confrontation that the North Koreans have practiced is going to come to a halt without significant penalties on North Korea?
From China.
I think it's time we talked about regime change in North Korea. And I do not mean military action, but I do believe that this is a very unstable regime. They're now passing on from the dear leader to what we call the sweet leader, or whatever it is, 27-year-old 4-star general. So, and we can have a peaceful resolution to this issue. But the North Korean regime is not one that's going to abandon the nuclear power status. They are now seeking recognition from us that they are a nuclear nation. That's not in our interest.
I want to move on to Afghanistan, but to button this up,
one other thing. The Chinese, now the United States is engaged in military operations with South Korea in the Yellow Sea. The Chinese have claimed the Yellow Sea as a special economic zone. We have to understand that China is not behaving in a responsible fashion as a world power, and we have to make adjustments to our policies regarding China.
And just to button this up, are we on the verge? Is the Korean Peninsula on the verge of war, or is this something that is a more long-term problem?
I think if past behavior holds true, the North Koreans will walk up to the edge and then step back and try to get more concessions and more money and more economic aid and more jobs for North Koreans sponsored by South Korea. I'm not sure that the South Koreans are going to go along this time.